Hey folks, how you doing? This is Bob Gumbs with the Concern Forum. And before I go any further, let me give you an apology. My apology is because I really hadn't planned on doing anything this evening. I hadn't planned on doing the video. And here it is now a little bit after 2:30, and I was just up late doing some writing, and I decided uh, to check out the news uh, in the United States before I went to bed, crashed out. And let me give you some advice. If, especially for nowadays, if you wish to have a good night's sleep, don't look at don't look at the damn news uh, about America. Just don't do it. And some of the things, excuse me, some of the things that I saw, it just got me so damned upset. And I don't know, I get like that. I get so angry, uh, so so pissed off that I say, hey man, I gotta really speak on this because if I don't, I will feel like I'm letting people down. Let me start off. I'd like to start off by reciting this. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in the state of civilization, it expects what it never has and never will be. Thomas Jefferson. And I know it's strange, dedicated progressive leftist like myself reciting Jefferson. But let's face it, the man had some good points about government. And I think that we surely need to listen to some of those good points for what we got going on now. The thing that astounds me is that right now we are bordering on what people used to call a banana republic, Nazi dictatorship, however you want to put that. And right now, you have two parties. You have, I say, you have the Traitors Party and you have the Patriots Party. And I tell you quite frankly, they are very disappointing at times here lately. But the only patriotic party that we have in so-called mainstream American politics is the Democratic Party. The Republican Party is gone, and it's such a sad freaking irony that a party that was dedicated for the advance of freedom and to stop the spread of slavery is now essentially the party of Nazism, right? Uh, they have turned this clown, this sad little boy, Charlie Kirk, into some kind of sainted icon. And I'm trying to understand these Democrats, people like Schumer and Jeffries, the dynamic, the undynamic duo, where the hell are they? Our people are being beaten in the streets. And when I say our people, I'm talking about American people are being beaten in the streets by this ICE business. The drunk that we have for Secretary of Defense, this clown is trying to militarize the United States military against the American public. And I don't hear a peep out of these two birds. Chuck Schumer is a nice enough guy, uh, but he comes across as a nice real estate accountant. Okay. Jeffries, I don't know Jeffries personally. I never met him. Schumer, I have a couple of times. Jeffries, no. I know he's supposed to be a kid out of Brooklyn. Uh, Frankly, I don't see it from his behavior over the last 2 years. We don't need nice boys for the Democratic Party in Congress right now. We need lions. Um, God, it was only possible to reincarnate the spirit of maybe a Ted Kennedy or a Bobby Kennedy. Not the one we're talking about now, for God's sake, no. The one we got now, he basically wants to kill all the American people. No vaccine, no vaccine. And see, this is what we have come to. And, you know, a time crying out for leadership, and the closest thing that we have to leadership on the national level, Gavin Newsom. Uh, I have problems, I have some issues with him, but the man does speak out. He does speak up. We have AOC, uh, and we have Bernie Sanders. I think that unfortunately for Bernie, the mainstream Democratic Party has done such a great job in basically constantly putting Bernie in the corner. Uh, the, I think it's pathetic. And I don't think that people realize you cannot negotiate with this Republican Party. This is not my pop's Republican Party. And I speak from personal knowledge because both my parents were Republican Party activists back in the 50s and 60s. Mm. This Republican Party of today, it's very, for the most part, and I won't say every single member, but generally has become a haven for Nazis, quite frankly. You look at your vice president. Not only is this guy a DEI baby, he called his boss. It has been 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, since he called Donald Trump a Hitler, an American Hitler. He didn't say that. He said it. And see, this is the crap that we have for leadership now in America. And by the way, if you don't believe or if you don't understand that Donald Trump's ultimate goal is to wreck this economy, to tear this country apart, you're a damn fool. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. You don't take away health care from your American citizens. And then they run around these, I don't know what you want to call them, these junior Nazi lovers and called MAGA, running around talking about, America first, America first. Number one, on a planet where you're like about less than 4% of the planetary population running around talking about America first, I think that's pretty stupid. Unless you are so self-sufficient that you never will ever need anyone else. And if you know anything about geography or raw resources, natural resources, well, for the United States, that's impossible. Number one. Number two, even if you want to buy into that ignorance of America first, how is it America first when you subject your citizens to disease and poverty. I mean, it doesn't sound too American firsty to me, quite frankly. We know vaccine babies, right? Nobody needs to get vaccinated. I'm trying to figure out, where in the hell did we get these people from? And now I'm hearing the farmers, they're talking about they want a handout. Uh, you see, it's just so confusing. The farmers want a socialist handout, but yet they were some of the main people objecting to canceling out student loans. Them and their ilk rather were also, well, Mandami, he's a Muslim socialist. Well, wait a minute, farmer, old McDonald, what the hell do you think it is when you, by your vote, basically you voted to destroy your livelihood, and then you want the government to pick up the tab for your mistake? I think that goes beyond socialism. I didn't vote for this clown in the White House. You did. And the weird thing is, he told you what he was going to do. He told you he was going to wage a tariff war. He told you he was going to deport your non-registered help. And so now that the chickens have come home to roost, you expect us to pay for your dumb mistake? You know what? I'll go for it. I say, yeah, why not? I think the government should help you out. Just like I believe the government should help people about these student loans. And just like I believe the government has an obligation to help people in terms of these high ass housing costs that people are forced to pay, especially like in places like New York, where I'm from. See, I think that that's something that a lot of these people who voted for Trump, I know that they're not that educated. I know that America, was it? I think 54% of the population reads below the sixth grade reading level. And see, that's how come Trump says, I love the undereducated, right? I mean, that should tell you something right there. And see, for you people to go ahead and say, well, we got the black lady here, and we got the convicted criminal and sexual abuser over here, and you turned your back on the black woman, excuse me, the black Asian woman, and you said, we're going to go with the convict. Well, folks, if you're going to vote for a circus, why are you surprised when the clowns come in the main ring? I, believe me, the world and no, the rest of the planet is not perfect, okay? But people nowadays about the rest of the world, they marvel at the imbecility of many in the American electorate. I'm sorry, because this country's in serious trouble. America's in serious trouble, and it's being designed that way. Joe Biden said something a couple of years ago, and a lot of people attacked him. Your mainstream, middle of the road type people, right? He was like a predominantly black audience, and he said something to the effect of, "Yeah, well, you let Trump get back in there, he's gonna have you all back in chains." Well, unfortunately, to a large extent, Joe was right. Only it's not going to be like a black thing. You're going to have a lot of white folks, especially white male, out there doing the job that they deported um, Latino immigrants from doing. And I remember the first time I was out of the service, in between my time in the Army and the Navy, I was a pre-law student at City University in New York, and we had Dick Gregory come and give us a talk. And he said something, and this is back like in the 70s, and he said something that has stayed with me ever since. He said that what they're going to do between the right wing and a large section of corporate America, he said, you white students out there, you're all going to be the new niggas. You and your children will be the new niggas. The white middle class will not exist. And look at what we have now. Look what these Republicans, Trump, MAGA, with corporate help, look what they have done. America is like anathema. Nobody wants to come here. Nobody wants to come to America. Look at Las Vegas. Florida's dead. They're finished, right? Texas is just, I think Texas it was the only red state that you could say was making a little money. Now that's not even the case because the fossil fuel industry is bailing out of Texas. And myself, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I can read and I see the handwriting on the wall. This is a coordinated strategy to literally kill the American middle class. And what they're doing, thanks to Trump, they're basically using American prejudice and bias to strangle us as a country, as a nation. This guy, Charlie Kirk, listen, no one deserves to get shot down like a dog, okay? Boom, end of it, right? But this canonization, whatever you want to call it, somebody started putting his picture on money. This man basically insulted black men, black women, white women, Latinos, immigrants, international trade, and he didn't even hold a government office. The closest he came to being in the government or having anything to do with the government, he applied to get into West Point, and they shot him down. And the more you read about the things that Charlie Kirk said, I kind of got an idea why they didn't want him in West Point, quite frankly. But you also have to ask the question. You don't live in the world by yourself, MAGA. You have to deal with people. You have to deal with people from countries who are, dare I say, non-white. Why should any country, I'm talking about Africa, all right, because Africa is the future. That's the world's treasure trove. If you don't believe me, ask France and Britain. They were there for a couple of 100 years, and it was like trying to pull teeth to get them out of there. So I'm quite sure they would agree with me. Okay? Trump knows that. That's why he is trying to incite confusion and violence in South Africa. Yeah, they have a little like potential civil war thing that Trump is trying to, he's trying to help fan the flames under the table. You know, I live in this part of the world, and I can assure you, there's no white genocide. You have disgruntled people left over from the apartheid days, okay, but there's no genocide. But Trump is looking for any excuse that he can to get into Africa because he wants those resources. Him and some of his global corporate buddies, that's what they're dying to do. And see, Americans are very, unfortunately, they're very naive about the rest of the world. And one of the reasons for that is because Americans in general, they either don't know their own history or they don't want to know. Like a place like Oklahoma, I seriously doubt if they even teach anything about Martin Luther King. And remember, that's the same place where they had that huge race riot where they killed hundreds of black folks. Uh, it was like almost like a separate black town that was making so much money they called it Black Wall Street in the early 1920s, and they burnt it. Right, killed hundreds of black folks, and that was typical. Right, you'll find that from the end of Reconstruction all the way up until the early 70s, and that's American history. But a lot of places in America, they don't want that stuff taught. And see, you can never solve a problem if you really don't understand the problem, if you don't know the problem. And that's why we constantly have these problems. I'm over 65. I'm looking at a lot of the same bullshit from back in the 60s. And with intelligent, living in an intelligent, supposedly civilized, educated country, that should not be the case. But it is. And it's going to lead to the destruction of America, of our democracy. Because all a demagogue has to do, just like you have Trump and Trump Jr. Vance, right? All they have to do is appeal to people's prejudice. And that, it blinds people to what's best for their own good, see? And that's what we have now. People follow their biases. You even have some people who the prejudice and bias is against voting as just like many Latinos and their leadership, like many American Muslims and their leadership, right? And a few knuckleheaded blacks, right? Voted for Trump, which in essence, and also women, right? You voted to end your own survival. Now, painfully, as we see in the case of Latinos, it's horrendous and it hurts, but that's what happened. See? I don't know if we as a nation will ever rise above this. I don't know. Will it be in your lifetime? Will it be in my lifetime? I don't know. But I do know that as long as we have Trump and Vance in the White House, this country is headed for destruction. And to show you how scared Trump is, he's doing, he's doing everything he can to try and interfere with the 26 and the 28 elections. Because make no mistake about it, Trump has been doing things that are truly punishable by law. He's been in there, since January? This guy's made something like what did they say? It's like $1 billion, $3 billion, something like that. Since he's been in the White House. That ain't right. Okay. And he's afraid that he's going to be held accountable for that. And I tell you, quite frankly, the Democratic Party has not been a big help. It truly hasn't. Because we walk around, you know what? I call it walking down that mainstream Morning Joe road. Oh, well, we don't want too far to the left. Well, listen, let me ask you something. If your house is on fire, do you want the fire department to moderately try and put out your fire? Or do you want them to jump in there and get real? And it's just like the problem we have now. I'm leaning over here because I got stuff popping up on my computer, talking about Trump uh, using the Justice Department to punish his enemies like Comey. You know what Comey's problem is? I tell you the crime that Comey committed. Excuse me. You know what that old boy did? He did the supreme crime in dealing with Donald Trump. He basically said, Donald, you're a nice chap and all that, but my loyalty is with the Constitution. That was Jim Comey's crime. Nothing else. I mean, Trump can talk about the bullshit he wants, but that's the crime. With Donald Trump, if you're not loyal to him, you're an enemy. So I guess that makes me an enemy. I guess it makes most of the same people that we still have left in the United States his enemy. But that's what it's about. Now, that whole thing about the Constitution, I think that we're going to have to really take a look at the Secretary of Alcohol, excuse me, the Secretary of Defense, Pete, was it Hexon? Yeah. And, this business about trying to turn the American military into a police force, that's unconstitutional. And it's scary because of the fact that you got a Supreme Court, they seem to be in Trump's pocket. Now we got the whole damn posse comitatus right there in the Constitution. It's there. Um, what kind of people who we have running the military? Seriously, this is a constitutional crisis. But shit, every day seems like every day is a constitutional crisis with Trump. And now people are just starting to wake up to this fact. So, it's sad. It really is. Now, talking about the Democrat side of the house, we got what's his name? The congressman out of my district in the Bronx, Torres, right? They got a fellow running against him, Jose Vega. And I think Mr. Vega's a good guy, quite frankly. Very aware, very up on foreign policy and diplomacy, which is a hell of a lot more than I can say for Richie Torres. The only thing that you know about Richie Torres is that he gets money from APAC. It's a nice piece of change, very nice. And he's got investments apparently in one of these defense firms, right, that make a lot of weapons that the state of Israel uses to commit genocide in Gaza. And quite frankly, as a progressive Democrat, as a disabled, veteran, as a Harlem and Bronxite, I got big problems having a congressman. I think he probably would do a better job representing a district in Tel Aviv, but not the Bronx. And I plan on voting for Jose Vega myself because it's time for a change. I think that Mr. Torres represents the type of Democrat and the part of the Democratic Party that helped to get the country in the mess that it's in today. These well dressed nicely spoken, moderate types. You know, see, there comes a point in time where some things just ain't debatable. Now, this guy, wasn't it Ezra Klein for the New York Times? He said did a thing for Charlie Kirk, right? Talking about even if you found his eye, what did he say? Even if you didn't like his ideas, you had to admire the fact that he was willing to debate them. No, no. And see, that's where um, mainstream Democrats, progressives, uh, people like that, that's how we have gotten screwed over the last, I don't know, 20 years. Because we allow people to drag us into debates about things that are not debatable. My humanity, okay, my worth as an American citizen, that's not for debate. I'm sorry. The brain capacity of my dear sainted mother is not a subject for debate. When you have this white guy sitting up there saying that black women have smaller brain capacity than white males, I don't think that that's debated. You know, I think that that calls for a very quick condemnation. Seriously. I don't think that the idea that it was okay for me to be less and treated less than a full citizen, I don't think that that should be up for debate. When Charlie Kirk said that he was against the, what was it, the Civil Rights Bill of '64. Well, in case you folks out there don't know, black people in this country were not full citizens in the United States by law until, what was it, that 64, 64, 65 Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, or how you want to phrase the two. Because before that, I could live in New York, I could vote in New York, but there were parts of this country, and not as few as you might think, where I could not, I wasn't able to vote. So when you say you are against the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Act, things like that, you're saying that it was perfectly okay with you for me to remain 2/3 of a freaking American citizen. Sorry, my humanity is not up for debate. Okay? When you say that if a 10-year-old girl of any color is raped and impregnated, that she should be forced, tied down and carry that fetus for 9 months. Sorry, I don't buy that. That's one of the main reasons why I left the Roman Catholic Church, because that kind of thinking is something out of the Dark Ages, right? And no, the humanity of that 10-year-old girl, no matter what color she is, should not be a subject for debate any more than Joe Blow down the street having the right to shoot Charlie Kirk in the neck. No, he doesn't, right? That's not up for debate because he doesn't have the right to kill Charlie Kirk because you don't like what Charlie Kirk is saying. And I agree with that. He does not have that right. And that is not a subject for debate. But my humanity, my citizenship as a black man, neither is that a fit subject for debate. The size of my mom's brain in comparison to a white male is not a subject for debate. that little white girl who's been made pregnant by a family friend or uncle or what have you at 10 years old and being forced to carry a fetus to term, that is not a fit subject for debate. See, there are certain things in this life that are not debatable. You don't have a right to beat your wife. Okay, that's not a discussion. You got right, you got wrong. Period. And the subjects that Charlie Kirk rolled around trying to dump that knowledge on college kids, okay, that was bullshit. It's just pure bullshit. Because if somebody came to one of those college kids and said, "Hey, I don't like you. I don't like how you look. I'm gonna bust you upside your face." Is that debatable? Of course not. Any more than the humanity that Charlie Kirk, than the people that Charlie Kirk degraded, blacks, women, Latinos, immigrants, okay? Those subjects, those people are not up for debate. And there are times when you just like Nancy Reagan said, there are times when you just have to say no. And then for the people and the American government to try and make this guy, put him on dollar bills or make statues to him, a Medal of Freedom, flags that have masks and all that type of nonsense. And then you find yourself, oh God, well, we need to get this mineral, trilitium, and it's in Africa, and you want to come over to Africa and start talking about doing trade deals and military cooperation. Frankly, and governments are just like men. They do what they want to do, what they think is in their own best interest. If I was the head of any African government right now in this time period, and I saw people coming from this Trump administration wanting to talk about deals, first thing I would do, I would get on the phone and maybe call China or Brazil or somebody. And then I would flip the United States to bird. But that's my opinion. Because this idea that you have about that the people who run America right now have, that dark people, and that could be Africa, India, China, but especially with Africa, that, well, hey, these people are just, as we used to say when I was in the military doing TT, just TT above a gorilla. I don't know. Am I going to say that, African nations will reject trade with the United States because of the horrible history that America has had in dealing with people of color, not just in Africa, but around the world? No, I ain't going to say that. Not going to say that. Being realistic. Personally, I would say that, but that's my own personal feeling. And I'm entitled to that as a human being. But realistically, no. However, if I were the person on the other side of that negotiating table, and I know that, these people think that I'm just a quarter of an inch above an animal, what kind of trade responsible, intelligent, cooperative, fair type of trade agreements, do I think I'm going to get dealing with people that think that, well, hell, who think that my country is a shithole country? What would you think? What would you do? See, you got all these Christian nationalists running around America. You know what the basic tenet of Christianity is? As a matter of fact, that's supposed to be the whole Judeo-Christian Islamic, that whole thing combined, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In other words, what's another way of saying that? Empathy. Yeah, empathy. The fact that I, as a human being, I don't have to know you personally, but just as one human to another, how did Bill Clinton always say? I can feel your pain. I mean, if I'm walking down, I got something to do, I got business, blah, 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 I'm going to Joe Schmo's, right? Because I got business. And on my way to Joe's, girl walks up and says, hey, where you going? I'm going to Joe Schmo. We got business to take care of. Listen, his mom just got shot and killed. Oh, being an empathetic human being, I'm going to chill out on my business with Joe. Because I know how I would have felt if my mom didn't have a natural death, if she had been shot and killed, right? I know exactly how I would feel. That is a thing called empathy, right? You don't have to be a psych major to figure that out, right? The feel for people. But interesting thing, because all these MAGA clowns and Republicans in Congress crying over Charlie Kirk, I'm curious because Charlie Kirk said that empathy is a bad thing. He doesn't believe in it. He didn't believe in it. He also said that the mass shootings in America, people being blown away, children being blown away, is the price that we pay for the Second Amendment. And so he says that our gun murder rate, number one, is the price that we pay for our Second Amendment freedoms, and that number two, empathy is a bad thing. So then Charlie gets himself shot in the freaking neck and dies. So what am I supposed to do? He's the one that said, well, this is the price that we pay for the Second Amendment. I don't agree with that. But hey, he was a great free speech guy. That's what he believed. And then he said, he doesn't believe in empathy. So why in the hell should anyone be bothered? I mean, really, be bothered about what happened to Charlie Kirk. He wouldn't want that. I mean, that's what he said. He said he didn't believe in empathy. So that's the hypocrisy of the right wing. And then you get that other little creep pansy. Oh, what's his name? The boy-headed, weirdo-looking dude. Always running around. He's a Jewish guy, but I have met Nazis who were not as virulently anti-humanity as this little clown is. I guess maybe because I'm getting old, I don't know. People who really disgust me Sometimes I have a hard time. I'll probably think of his name when I try to go back to bed, but you know what I'm talking about. Um, Not Stephen Smith. That's the black guy. That's the black moron from ESPN. No, the one that's in the White House, little Jewish fellow. This guy, the one that everybody hated in high school, right? Now, I mean, he seems to love the idea of turning the military loose on their fellow citizens and all this kind of crap. And tearing babies out of hospitals and putting them in cages and, stuff like that. And I feel very bad every time I think about this guy because he seems to have a very beautiful family. I'm not talking about his immediate family. I'm talking about like his relatives and what have you. Because it's my understanding, if it wasn't for some nice, brave, kind, empathetic people in Europe, this clown wouldn't be here today. Because they helped his family escape from the Holocaust. You never know about some people, right? Just popped up on my screen. I want blood in the streets. Conservative site editor explicitly calls for violence. Godfrey Ingersoll, an editor of At Large of the far-right news outlet The Daily Caller, recently published Enough is Enough. I Choose Violence. You know, what's another problem that really, I find so distressing? Uh, Primarily is because some people are just so stupid. Now, we all have computers, just about, most of us, especially those of us that want to participate in any public dialogue. All you got to do is sit down, do Google, AI, they all say the same thing. The overwhelming majority of violence is committed by right-wing groups. It's not my opinion, right? It's not my propaganda. It's not my wish. It is. It just is what it is. You know, um, from the Oklahoma bombing to the murder of 10 black people in the church of South Carolina, to the slaughter, what was it, I think 11 Jews, 11 Jewish people in a synagogue outside of Philadelphia because someone felt that they were too nice, too kind to the immigrant. What's going to wind up happening if we're not careful, you're going to have a situation where you're going to have some veterans. And if it's a thing where they're going to automatically, because they like to target, apparently, they have black Democrats on their list. And, you usually find black Democrats in black communities. And I would suggest that these people who wish to perpetrate violence against innocent people, you need to think twice. Because you got a lot of black veterans out here, okay, combat trained. And we're not scared. We are not afraid because we've been through this kind of crap before. Open your history books, okay? And I don't let this man Trump try to have you cash checks that your butt cannot afford to cover. Seriously. Because it seems to me that with Trump and his death and his I don't know what they call advance anymore. It seems like what these people want, they want a confrontation. And rest the soul. My mom always had that saying, be careful what you wish for, because you might get it. But you might not enjoy it. And I'm just saying, you know, because if you think that people living in their communities are going to allow these MAGA people to come and just charging into communities, especially communities of color, and that people are going to lay down for it, I don't think that's going to happen. I tell you the truth, I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. I think that what's going to happen is just like you're starting to see now. Now, I understand that ICE has relieved one of their stormtroopers from duty because he beat a woman down to the floor. And apparently he was caught doing that. Apparently he was caught on film. And so now this guy has been relieved of duty. I want to see my Democratic, I've given up on most Republicans, but I want to see my elected officials push to have this guy prosecuted. Because no one has a right to do that. You don't have a right to beat people in this country, no matter who you are or who you think you're with. Especially if no one, if you're not attacked. The cop is not being actively attacked. He has no right to beat people down. And these guys are not cops. And, I'm a little bit disgusted with Schumer and Jeffries. It's nice to say, look, don't mess up America's health care, otherwise we're not going to talk. Right? We just want the government shut down. Okay, yeah, that's cool. But see, there are a lot of things that are happening along with that. You need to confront Trump and his Republicans with a list of demands. It's just that simple. Hey, cut the funding for ICE, right? Hold ICE accountable. Let's find out what happened to those, almost about 1,000 detainees, and we don't know if these people are American citizens or not because they've been disappeared. It seems no one can find them. Their lawyers, family. What the hell are we allowing ourselves to become in this country? People talk about, oh, well, yeah, you don't like it here, go to Russia. Okay, well, I think maybe you need to tell that to your president and these MAGA people, because they seem to be the ones that are trying to turn us into some kind of, I don't know, tyrannical concentration camp. That's something that we need to take a look at. Now, I gave 26 years of my adult life to this country and its military. Army, Navy Reserve, National Guard. So please, this is not about, I want to burn the flag. Me, myself, personally, I couldn't burn the flag because I would see the ghost of all those Buffalo soldiers from San Juan Hill, from Fort Hudson, from World War I, World War II, Korea. No, I couldn't burn the flag. But just because I love what the flag supposedly stands for, that doesn't mean that any American of any color or gender or ethnic nationality should be abused. And that is the biggest problem that I see with the Republican Party. They have allowed themselves to be taken over by a bunch of goddamn fascists. And we have to stop pussyfooting around. And, pardon the pun, but let's start calling the spade a spade. If you're a liar, if you've been known to lie, that means that you're a liar, right? And you have always been the person to come up with the most asinine, idiotic solutions, then that means you're an idiot. You know, that's not up for debate. And what we have going on here in America is idiocy, and the world knows it. And when Donald Trump made a fool out of himself on the world stage, because you go into the United Nations, I don't give a damn what you think about the United Nations. That's the world stage. And you go in, you go on that stage and you act and talk like an idiot. That's exactly what you are. And that's what the world sees. Don't give a damn about how big your military is. Rome had a big military. And look what happened to them. So for America, I mean, it's time to get woke. It's time to stop letting people make a sucker out of you. Okay? And yeah, I said it, sucker. Don't be a sucker. There's an excellent, right after World War II, like the Department of Defense made a little like skit. Look it up. It's on Google. Google it up. Don't be a sucker. That's the title of it. And that's the exact same thing that we have going on now in America. People have allowed themselves to be made suckers. Or, if I could put it more delicately, you're allowing yourself to be made chumps out of. Pure freaking chumps. That's why so many of you folks who thought that, well, yeah, I hurt those other people by voting for Trump, and then they woke up and found out that, oh my goodness, the leopard ate my face. Yeah. The right wing, MAGA, they made a chump out of you. So let's think about it. Think about that. And then turn on Fox News, go to the library, get some books, do some reading. Might as well, now that you're unemployed, hey, can't hurt. It's like chickens. It's just like the old Jewish grandmother's recipe with chicken soup. It cannot hurt. Try it. Listen, I got that off my chest. I am going to try and get some sleep. I'm not going to watch the news anymore before I do try to go to sleep and crash. Listen, I'll see you next time. You folks take care. And if you see me on YouTube, give me a like if you like it. If you don't, at least hear out what I have to say. And then make a decision. Hey, this is Bob Gum, Concerned Forum. Take care. Take care of each other. Stay alert, read, and peace.